Hi and welcome. My name is Tracey Campbell and I'm here for Confessions of a Paper Addict Design Team. This is the November release and it's sunflower cut file that I've picked to use. It's such a beautiful cut flower. It comes in one size, but you can manipulate it on your die cut machine and change the size and flip it horizontal so you can have the leaf on the left or the right side. I've printed it off. I've cut it out of white cardstock in 5 different sizes, and I'm just going to take you through of how I've backed the cut file and how I create a layout using it. I have gone through my scrap box where I've got all my scrap pieces, and I've picked a range of different colours, and I am using them to back the cut file. What I do in my process is I actually use usually a pencil, but this paper I'm using has got a bit of a gloss on it and the pencil wouldn't mark, so I've used a black fine marker and I have traced the inside of where the cutout is, and I go back and after I've cut it out separately from the paper, I cut about 1 or 2 mils either side of my pencil or pen line in this particular case to leave enough room so I can adhere it to the cut file. And I've used a 3-dimensional liquid glue for this. I do have other glues and I have an on-point fine one, but I actually don't find they stick as well as this. I'm a bit of a messy person, so I do have a baby wipe with me at all times where I wipe the mat down after each one, because I have actually stuck my die cut down to my table or my mat in the past because I left it too long sitting in the one spot. These accidents happen, I know. When I am cutting various shapes and sizes like I have just done with the 3 different size leaves, I actually put a mark on each leaf, like 2 lines, 1 line, 3 lines, for the 3 different shapes and sizes. That way when I'm going back and adhering them to the die cut, it gives me an indicator of which size goes to which design, but also the placement of where it is. I started doing this when I cut out a shape and I couldn't tell which side was which, and it took me quite some time to line it up, and I just didn't seem to be able to get it lined up. So to save myself some time and some frustration, I now put a little bit of a mark on as an indicator. It works really well. I'm not going to take you through my process of backing all of these sunflowers, as it would take some time and you'd probably get a bit bored. So I'll just edit out the video and show you some of the little finer details, I guess, that I'm doing, and I'll take you through. So what I've done here is I've chosen a black and white paper to put in the centre of the sunflower. Now I tend to work for myself when I'm doing this and do the fussy cutting little bits first, the details that's going to show through, and then I do the bigger bit. So for instance, the centre here and also the stem and the leaf, and then I'll put the big solid coloured flower petals over the top. That way the centre will and parts of the leaves will show through, and I won't have to go back later on and like cut out the centre of the petals, so the colour's already there and it's a bit hard to explain. So basically I'm putting the finer details on and then just worrying about the backing to cover everything up later so that the finer detail colours are coming through. It still doesn't sound right, but I'm hoping with the video that you're watching that you get the idea of what I'm talking about. I just use normal scissors, nothing fine or fancy, when I'm cutting out paper. I have seen some really fancy scissors and I've bought a couple, but I tend to go back to these little blue pair that I actually bought for my daughter's to start school, and they got returned because they weren't good enough. I had to buy a more expensive pair for school, so I was stuck with these scissors, and I tried them, and I've just fallen in love with the shape and the size of them. They're easy to use. I do tend to get a pair of little nail clippers out and do the finer detail or trimming sometimes if I've gone over. But as you can see, scissors is scissors. Now this little flower, when I was pulling it up off the backing or the cutting mat, I actually tore the stem a little bit. So I decided that I was just going to use it as the sunflower head and use it on the layout somehow, maybe tuck it behind a photo or have it floating. And so I decided to back it as well. At this stage, not really with an idea of what I was going to do with it in my head. Just that I thought it was too cute to throw away. And I do tend to blend and meld some of my die cuts together. So yeah, it came and got covered in paper. Yep, you can see my buff head there. Sorry about that. I tend to get a bit closer to my hands when I'm working with small things, so you might see my head a little bit every now and then. Apologies for that. Right, so now onto my paper. Just used a wood grain paper, and now I'm just moving the layouts and die cuts around to get an idea of what I wanted. And what have I decided to do? I actually had this hedgehog die cut sitting on my desk, and decided I was going to use him too, or her. Can't decide if it's a boy or girl. So once again, I go to backing and putting the colour in, and at this stage I decided that the little sunflower head was the perfect size for this hedgehog. So my idea right now is to get it backed and then to replace the flower that the hedgehog's holding with the sunflower. And there goes the head of the flower, just chopped it off. Now I've got the stem left. I'm just tidying up some of the green poking through that I didn't trim off properly or cut to size properly. Putting on some of the fiddly little flowers so I can back the more solid colour over the top of the flowers with the colour still showing through. With some of the smaller fine shapes, I don't tend to trace them. I just tend to cut a little bit of paper to the same size, not necessarily the same shape, and then I just stick it over the top and layer it over the top, figuring you can't see the back once I've adhered it to my page, so it doesn't really matter if the back of the die cut is messy or not. And here I am just waiting and just going through my papers. I was just to see what colour I was going to back the hedgehog. I had to go through my supplies because I wasn't expecting to put this on the page and didn't have the right colour that I wanted for the hedgehog's back in my supplies on my desk. I've decided to go with a triangular rainbow colour, and I'm just cutting it out. So I added a little bit of colour into my beautiful sunshine yellow layout I had planned. And what I'm doing in this case, I'm just making sure it fits. But if I've got a fine cut file and there's a little bit of movement in the cut file, I tend to put the paper down and the glue and then put the cut file over so you can move the cut file onto the shape of the paper. Works out a little bit more when I'm in reverse and I've got the die cut down, or sorry, the cut file down, and then put the paper on top. I can't actually see what I'm doing, but if I flip it over like I just did, I can match it up better and then just trim off the excess. And there's my little hedgehog all layered up. And now I'm just going to pop the head of the sunflower back onto the stem. Just a little bit of glue. Only putting a little bit here to adhere it because I do know I'm going to glue it down onto the background paper. And there he is, so cute. Okay, right, now onto the background. So I've got my pile of die cuts, I've got my baseboard I'm using, and I have got some pattern paper. At this stage I decided I needed a little bit more colour, so I'm using a Colour Blast Colour Shimmer Spray in Punch and a Colour Blast Shimmer Spray in Sunshine. I've just put some down in the bottom right hand corner of my mat so that when I flip it over it's going to sit in the bottom left hand corner. So it's basically the packaging technique that I've done, but I've used the whole mat. So I've spread it out, let it congeal and move around, put the punch down, put the Sunshine on top, flip my paper over and put it on and rubbed it down. I then flipped it back over, cleaned up and added some flicks of splats with the straw from inside the bottle of the shimmer sprays. I am now putting some pattern paper down onto my base. The paper I'm using is actually from a Colour Blast range as well. It's called Love and Grace. It was designed by Michelle Grant, and it's a beautiful wood grain with sunflowers or daisies through it, yellow, and I thought it was the perfect match. So I put some down the left and down the right, and now I've decided that I need to tie up the bunch of my sunflowers. So I've pulled my Frisker punch and am making a little bow from it. Now these bows are a little bit fiddly, I've found. They look cute, but they take a little bit, the glue doesn't dry quick enough for my liking, so I tend to weigh it down with a pen or a paintbrush in the middle and a bit of weight so I can continue. I don't have very much patience for waiting for things to dry, so I tend to work around when things are wet or and get smudges everywhere. Yes, I'm not a very neat scrapbooker, unfortunately. I'd love to be neater. I'm trying to get there. So I've had a fiddle and I'm liking the positioning, but I'm needing a little bit more colour. So I've decided to tear the backing in the top right corner and to put some of the Love and Grace paper backing behind it after I've roughed it up a bit. I've just used a distressing tool there, using a bit of double-sided sticky tape. And I will stick the paper along the top and some down the side. Just using the paper trimmer. Never know if I'm going to use this paper again. I just love it, so I do tend to keep all my little bits and pieces and scraps. Okay, the hedgehog comes back onto the page. I'm just going to stick it down with the double-sided sticky tape. Yeah, and I have left the sunflower without any adhesive on it because I'm thinking about tucking the photo underneath. So I leave it up at the moment so I can slide things underneath. Now I've gone back to finish off my little bow. And yes, I'm holding it in place again with my finger while I'm continuing. So this is the centre of the bow. You get three pieces when you cut the bow out. You get the bow part that makes the puffy bow, you get the centre that wraps around the middle, and then you get the two loose ribbons that hang off the edge. It all needs a little bit of manipulation, but it does look so cute when it's made up. So I've just tucked the photo in, left it a little bit loose so I can slide the die cuts underneath. I'm using a thin double-sided sticky tape for the stems, and then just a bit of three-dimensional tape to pop the petals up and a little bit higher, and add a bit of dimension to the page. Just taking the back off the little three-dimensional squares, so it will adhere, and moving it around, flipping it down, putting it down, and pressing it in place, making sure that the stems cross over in one spot so I can add that little bow. Just snip the bow ties in half so I can stick them out. You don't really need to do that, they're cut so you can use them in a straight, but I like to have them dangling. And just using a bit of three-dimensional squares again to pop them up. Title time. So I've got these lovely white chipboard words, and I'm using a Colour Blast little shimmer pot, a shimmer cube they call them. This colour is Bling, so it's a lovely gold colour, and it just activates like a watercolour with a bit of water, and you use it as you would a watercolour paint and paint over the top of whatever you want to colour. I am now using some stickles, giving a little bit of shine and shimmer to the hedgehog, making her stand out in the corner with a little bit of bling. I'm going to stick the title down now. The word beautiful will run across the bottom, and you are will be in the centre and above. I just have a bit of a play where I want to put the word. Now I do tend to use a bit of glue adhesive on the back of my chipboard, because I have found that after a few months or a year or so, the chipboard tends to fall off if it's not used with a glue. Just makes it stick better and for longer. It's disappointing when you see the little bottom of the chipboards in your packets, in your page protectors, in your album. So stick those little things down. And I have just about finished. I have. There we are. Just showing you what it turned out, and I really love how it's come together. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to sharing more layouts with you. And pop on to the website or the Etsy shop, Confessions of a Paper Addict. Bye.